season for the birth of your Son, Jesus Christ, who came to this earth to forgive us from our sins and to give us hope. Lord, let us reach down inside ourselves, each one of us, and search our souls to understand it's more gratifying to give than to receive. There's so many people in this state and in this country and probably in our towns across this great state that are hurting, that need a jacket, that need a warm home, that need food. Lord, let us take those resources that you've given us and help those that are less fortunate. Lord, we thank you for you giving your Son, Jesus Christ, to us. Lord, we ask you to be with the military who are overseas, who are away from their family during this wonderful time of the year. We ask you to protect our military and watch over them. Lord, we thank you for this commission, the men and women here today, and the representatives here. We ask you just to give us guidance. Let us be respectful of each other and watch over us as we part and go our separate ways. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Jim Bledsoe,
here.
William Brown,
Here.
Harold Cannon,
Here.
Bill Cox,
Here.
Jeff Griggs,
Here.
Jeff McMillan,
Here.
Tom Rice,
Here.
Jim Ripley,
Here.
Julie Schuster, Clayton Stout,
Yes, ma'am.
James Stroud,
Here.
Trey Teague, Jamie Woodson.
We do have a forum, so we'll proceed. At this time, do we have a motion or any discussion about the minutes from the October meeting? Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, the motion passes. At this time, let me make a few announcements. This is a joint meeting today of committees and the commission. Typically, those are separated, but because of the, what's on the agenda today, it's just been combined into a one-day meeting. There will be a tablet circulated throughout the room. I ask you to sign your name, and if you're here to represent a specific group, put down who you represent, and just continue to pass that tablet throughout the room. If you want to address the commission, I'll ask you to come to the center of the room to the microphone, state your name and the purpose for addressing the commission. You will be permitted to do that at the time the subject matter about which you're here to talk is being discussed. For example, if it's anything to do with fisheries, you will be allowed to speak during the time matters pertaining to fisheries are being discussed. Same thing with wildlife and et cetera. I have the right to limit the amount of conversation. Typically, we don't do that unless somebody just goes on and on and on. And if it's repetitious, just state what business you have with the commission, and so that we can get into that discussion. If we have any questions, we'll ask you. And certainly, if you have any questions or comments to make to the commission, you may do so. At this time, we're going to proceed with presentations. Jack Gaden is here from Shikar. Is that how you pronounce it, Jack? Shikar Safari Award for the 2012 Officer of the Year.
Get here, and Tom Rice said, Jack, you got to do better. That mask is TWRA family members for helping us come up with this award. This year we have Todd Weaver. Congratulations on being chosen as the Outstanding Wildlife Officer of the Year for the state of Tennessee for 2012. Todd, to be selected best of one's field by one's peers must be a most rewarding experience. Shikar Safari Club International joins your state officials and fellow officers in congratulating you as the well-deserved recipient of this 2012 award. Wildlife conservation is one of the primary concerns of our worldwide organization. Formed in 1952, we have 185 members throughout the world, and our principal purpose for which the club was organized involved protection, enhancement, and preservation of wildlife species, with particular emphasis on endangered and threatened species. We believe we can advance the purpose by encouraging and promoting and enforcing of the conservation laws and regulations, and Todd has been very good at that. Being selected for this prestigious award, Todd, places you in a very distinguished group of officers in the United States and throughout the world. We do this in other countries as well, who have achieved recognition because of their outstanding performance and dedication to duty. All too seldom, our officers who are outstanding receive very little recognition and encouragement that is so richly deserved for protecting and preserving our wildlife. We at Shikar Club hope that by presenting this award each year, we can make a worthy contribution to this important work. Our membership joins me in wishing you continued success in the conservation of our nation's most precious natural resource, and that's our wildlife. Now, with this award, I have him come up if you don't mind. You get a lapel pin that says you're the 2012 Officer of the Year, and a name tag that goes on a plaque that commemorates that. And we have a Shikar Safari Club Peter plate for you that you should enjoy for years to come. With this award comes a $20,000 fund that protects him in case he is killed in the line of duty, which I hope won't ever happen. We do have that set aside for him. And if you have children who go into wildlife conservation, our foundation does help out with the tuition for that child. So we do have money for that as well. So we're all very happy to see you get this. Here's your pen and name tag. Don't go near that. And we need to get pictures for this. I'm not going to wear my dog mask. Yeah. I do want to, I read his bio, it's 2 pages long, I just didn't want to go through it. It's too bad. I can't shake your hand. I can hug you, but you can't touch me. Congratulations, man. Oh, you can touch me. Ed, I don't mind you. I would like to say one thing. Go home and get on the computer and donate your organs. This young man that gave me his lung saved 14 people. And it's very important. We're really asking for that because in this area we have very few donors. So I really am happy to be here because I wasn't going to be here a few months ago. And you know it.
I do.
Thank y'all.
Commissioner Brown, if I could just highlight some of Todd's efforts this year, I'd appreciate it if you're okay with that. Commission's okay with that. If you think saying it's hard, I challenge you to spell it. Shikar, Safari, that's a tough spell. But I would also like to recognize his supervisors that are here today. What you got to understand, Todd, when he did all these efforts, he was in Hickman County, and he's since transferred to Upper East Tennessee. So his supervisors while he was in Hickman County is Captain Borum and Lieutenant Skelton, and then his current captain is here is Captain Sane. But just if I could, real quick, like he says, it's 2 pages long, and I'll try to do the highlights, but some of his teamwork and outreach efforts is he utilized local newspaper, radio, released over 15 public service announcements. He spoke personally with a high school wildlife class. He conducted a high school career day. He discussed native wildlife in a Cub Scout program. He taught the group how to about the hunting issues. He worked at National Wild Turkey Federation booth answering questions about turkeys. He worked a question and answer booth at the Wildlife Expo. He had a safety talk at a youth hunt, discussed wildlife laws at the Chamber of Commerce. He also hosted a youth deer hunt involving 30 local youth hunters. He assisted 7 other outreach programs, including 1,850 participants in agency-sponsored events. He also served by judging the safety officer of natural archery in the school programs. He worked the Envirothon. He worked a small game youth hunt. He helped out with a Jake's Day with a Turkey Federation, a youth squirrel hunt, and 2 youth dove hunts. He also spent some time with UT Martin students to spend a day with Officer Weaver job shadowing. He also worked the SEFA, the Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Association conference with all the attendees. And he taught and assisted of 400 ed classes, certifying 227 students. Some of Todd's excellence in innovation, he's developed an excellent working relationship with the public and also the county administrators. They've learned that he will respond quickly and efficiently when called to do his job in a professional manner. He also spent some time meetings with the warden at the Department of Corrections. There's a 2,000-acre tract of land. They were having problems with trespassing. He met with the local chief of police to work on problems with hunting in the city limits of Centerville. He's also been called in to get some information on and input on the district attorney and judge concerning high-profile cases. He met with the school superintendent to gain permission to incorporate hunter safety and archery programs in schools that now teaches hunter ed to every 5th grader in the county during school hours. He's recruited a group of volunteers and donators to start a large dove hunt in Hickman County. And he's also provided assistance to local law enforcement agencies as first responder on scene until EMS can arrive. He also helps with THP handling traffic during auto accidents. And Weaver relies heavily on his information received from local citizens and local law enforcement to try and outsmart the ones that try to outsmart him. He strives to make every call matter to him because it matters to the one making the call. Some efforts towards attitude and leadership. He's very well organized, and he is diligent in his work efforts and helping out the hunters, fishermen, and boaters at peak times. He's gained a lot of public contacts through him being in such a rural county at the time. He communicates well with the public and responds constantly to wildlife-related contacts. He maintains local information with fur trappers, and he issued 90 otter and bobcat tags. He monitors eagles nesting along the Duck River. He also surveyed bat populations in the local caves for diseases. He inspected a wildlife education facility and investigated a report of a state record spotted bass caught in his county. Some bizarre calls he responded to included the removal of a python from an abandoned house, and he also assisted investigating a local lady bitten by a possum. He responded to 18 other complaints of nuisance, injured, and orphaned wildlife and issued damage control permits to 3 deer complaints. He helped constructed hog traps and assisted the efforts in the district for nuisance trapping on wild hogs. He assisted landowners in 2 farm pond population and quality checks. There's not one case that stands out the most, but rather a culmination of all the things and accomplishments he's done in Hickman County. Now his efforts on achievements and accomplishments. Efforts were made to confiscation of 2 guns by the local judge and 3 individuals having their hunting, trapping, and fishing privileges revoked for a period of 1 year. He issued 150 citations and 28 warnings for a total of 185 enforcement contacts. He spent some time because the increase in canoe rentals and paddle sports on the Piney River led his efforts to help reduce litter, drugs, alcohol, and landowner complaints. He backpacks into remote areas along the river, inspecting boaters, and these efforts have led to nearly 100 fishing, boating, underage alcohol consumption, public intoxication, public indecency, and litter cases. This makes the outdoor enthusiasts more aware of keeping their environment intact and clean, increased awareness of safety laws and landowner rights. He has put in countless hours going through harvest tags to catch an adult who went hunting on a juvenile weekend without a kid and harvested and checked into deer himself. Some of the other investigations included an oil spill in a local stream, illegal fawn and raccoon possessions. He inspected 2 deer processors and 4 taxidermists for compliance with regulations governing their businesses. So those are some of the efforts. Job well done. We appreciate it, Todd and his supervisors. Thank you.
I get to talk.
I thought this was gonna be a short meeting.
Can,
Congratulate Todd. Todd, have you told Director Carter how much the notice he's got to vacate his position? Congratulations.
if he can give me till Christmas, I'd appreciate it. Can I say, I hate it when Darren gets to talk more than I do. Just wanted to mention a couple of things about Shikar Safari first, is that they've been great supporters of the agency. And before you guys leave, Chuck, I want to make sure that you recognize them, and Darren introduced them. Chuck and Jeff were the supervisors when Todd was in Hickman County. Tim Sane, Tim's our captain up in Upper East Tennessee there, and that's where Todd's going to go now. And got to say something about David. David Anderson is an officer in Hickman County for, I guess, his entire career, as I remember. Then his wife Marcia is with him, and I'm sure that Todd gleaned a lot from talking to David. And whenever I was in Region 2 and I worked in Hickman County, somehow David and I would always wind up at the house at supper time. And so I appreciate them putting up with me. Well, David, thank you for being here, and Todd for what you did too. But Shikar Safari, sponsoring all this, has done a lot for our enforcement folks. They've given money for projects all over the state, but especially in the southeast part. But anyway, I'll try not to make the meeting any longer. I just wanted to take that opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the batteries weren't dead, I'd light it up for you.
Hey, Todd, we don't have pythons up in Sullivan County, okay?
He's standing out for you.
All right, we'll move on at this time to Fisheries Management Committee and Commissioner McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. We're going to start off with Mr. Mike Patterson, a sportsman concerned about the restrictions that the Corps of Engineers discussing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you with a problem. It's going to be a real problem for fishermen in Middle Tennessee. The Nashville District Corps of Engineers is in the process of finalizing a policy that will prohibit anybody from fishing from a boat below any Corps of Engineer dam on the Cumberland River. And starting at the end, it would be Barkley, Cheatham, Old Hickory, Ordell Hull, and Lake Cumberland, and also the tributaries of Percy, Priestdale, Hollow, and Center Hill. This, in spite of the fact that one of the reasons this action is being proposed is to reduce the number of drownings. However, when you look at the statistics, that's less than 2% of the drownings have occurred on these lakes below the dam in these areas that will be now restricted. Bobby Wilson was quoted in yesterday's Tennessean as saying this is some of the best fishing in the whole state of Tennessee. You have all kinds of species that fish down there, and it has been unrestricted since these dams were built. I served as resource manager of Cheatham Lake for 18 years, retired in 2002. Spent over 1,000 hours fishing in these areas with a small boat, 14-foot John boat, 18-horse motor, sometimes accompanied by my daughters, and then since then my grandchildren. Never had any problems at all, just using the common sense, obeying the rules and regs. One requirement that TWRA and the Corps implemented in the late 1990s is mandatory requirement to wear a life jacket below these dams. That and the fact that the Corps has installed warning systems that it gives you a 5-minute warning anytime they're going to initiate a generator startup. It's serious. Lights go on, warning horn sounds. You move out of the area, 5 minutes later, everything is calm. The waters are like they were. Anytime they lock a boat through, they sound a siren, make sure nobody's in the discharge area. So anyway, the 18 district commanders before this commander we currently have not seen any reason to restrict these areas for boaters. I personally had a district commander that fished with me before I retired in 2002 that brought his 6-year-old son, and we had a great time fishing down there. He thought it was just a wonderful opportunity for families. Policy changes of this nature normally require public input. Back when I was manager, we proposed to restrict private boat docks on Cheatham Lake, and other lakes had the same thing, and we had a series of public meetings, took public comment, and tried to work out reasonable solutions to the regulations we were proposing to change. This district commander we got right now has proposed, he's placed a gag order on all the field projects. In other words, the rangers or the managers are absolutely prohibited from making any comment on this proposed change. He's placed the same gag order on the district office staff. When I heard about all this, of course, I knew how it used to be when I was manager, and things were a little more public oriented. So I sent a letter to Senator Lamar Alexander, Representative Jim Cooper, Ed Carter, anybody I could get their attention. And Senator Alexander sent a letter to Colonel DeLapp and told him that he didn't think this policy change should be implemented, certainly but not without public comment. And he has asked for a face-to-face meeting with the colonel sometime in the next, whenever, maybe a couple of weeks, in Washington to explain to him why he's proposing to do this. When in fact, none of I can't think of any good reason they do it. You can't really prevent drownings. They've had well over 600-700 drownings in the lakes above, and in the last 50 years, total, they've had 11 drownings. That's about 1 every 5 years. So nobody really seems to know why this district commander, we've had 18 before him that saw no reason to restrict boaters from fishing below these dams. Yesterday's Tennessee, and I'd like to read you just a little brief thing. A release from the Corps of Engineers Public Affairs Office states the Corps is currently in the process of finalizing a plan to restrict boating access to hazardous waters directly upstream and downstream of all hydroelectric power plant facilities along the Cumberland River and its tributaries. When the plan is finalized, the Corps will release information to the public. That's certainly the reverse of anything I've ever been involved in. It goes further to state that Lieutenant Colonel Jim DeLapp, commander of the Nashville District, would have no further comment until the new restrictions are in place. So if we're going to ever get this thing stopped, it needs to be stopped now. And it looks like all our efforts at the local level are not having any good effect. What I would ask the commission to do is contact the Corps of Engineers office in Washington, D.C., which is the overall Corps supervision. They have an office in Cincinnati that Colonel DeLapp answers to, and take some action to get this action stopped. This gentleman is leaving. They come in every 3 years, and they normally just kind of act as figureheads and leave the managing up to the managers at the lakes and the staff in the district office similar to the commission. I think he's going to rotate out in June, but if he gets his patch, it's going to affect people for a long time. Really, that's all I have to add. I've got copies of letters that I sent to Senator Alexander and various congressmen I'd like to leave with you. I've got the addresses and phone numbers to folks in Cincinnati and Washington, D.C. if you choose to make contact with them. The reason I haven't done that, I'm too far down the food chain to talk to those folks. So that in a nutshell is why I'm here, to please ask you to support us on this opposition
Well, thank you, Mr. Patterson, for coming and speaking to us. Bobby, I think we had a discussion about this week, and we, obviously, the agency is alarmed by it. Ed, Director Carr, can you speak about what we might be able to do to remedy the situation, or have y'all already been in contact with anyone?
It's a long story, but the short version is years ago, like Mike said, when Mike was the manager out at Cheatham, he was working with this, the agency was, and TVA and the Corps of Engineers both at that time were looking at restrictions below dams. We went through a long process to say if the commission will pass this rule about mandatory wearing of life jackets, would that satisfy what your concerns are? At that time, they thought that it would. So that rule was put in place, and it's been that way for several years now. Back in March, I guess, of this year, Colonel Ryder and his counterpart from Kentucky met with the Corps about this, and both states said, we don't want to go forward on this. We think it's not a good idea. Time passed. I went down and met with the Colonel, Steve and I, Chief Patrick and I, and told him our concerns, told him that if they went forward with it, it would be a very unpopular decision, and that as far as I knew, the commission would probably not be ready to push that into our rules and regulations, and that it would leave them with the enforcement strictly within the Corps, and I know what limited manpower they have when it comes to enforcement. I said, I won't jump out in front of you. I'll give you time to go through your process, but when you get to the public input side, that's when we want to go to our counterparts and our people that we work with, the fishermen in the state and the boaters in the state, and then we'll make our official statements. That was quite some time ago, and nothing has come out in the way of public information. I got a call from Senator Alexander's office wanting to know where we were on it, so I explained to them, and then shortly after, all that came out that Mike just told you about, Senator Alexander's stand on it and what he proposes. My counterpart in Kentucky, I talked with him. We have another meeting with the Colonel on the 4th of December to explain one more time our concerns, but Mike would know better than me, but essentially, the Corps has the authority to do what they're going to do. In the district offices, they're relying on the fact that Nashville is the only district that doesn't have this kind of regulations. The Nashville district, of course, accompanying the Cumberland River watershed. So that's what they're looking at. They think he thinks they need to go forward, and they can do that. And it would be a Corps regulations, and they'd be the one that would be enforcing it. So our only input at this point is to make contact with the Corps and those people who regulate the Corps out of division headquarters in Ohio and then up in Washington, and see if we can get enough input to them to ask them not to implement that regulation. So.
I misunderstood. Did you say Nashville is the only group area that doesn't have that regulation?
Yes, sir.
So everywhere else it's
in the Corps system.
Is it security or safety for drown? I mean, is it security both, or?
There was a little bit of concern after 9/11 about security on dams and locks. I think that has since really subsided, and after everybody really looked at what the possibilities were in terms of fishermen and those kind of things below dams. Right now, the Corps says it's primarily a safety concern, and the fact that their litigation they've been through, it's cost them quite a bit of money, and some of the cases that they've been, where litigation's been brought against them, and they've had to pay out civil damages for someone who was injured or an accident or killed below a dam, and they feel like that's where they need to go to correct that.
How many thousand feet or yards or what is it below the dam are they suggesting?
They don't have a set thing yet. The general rule would be that it would go to at least the end of the lock wall on those dams that have locks, and beyond that, there's a hydraulic line. That's when water comes over a dam, it causes the hydrology that comes in there and it washes back toward the dam, and you can visibly see that line. So they're saying in some cases that might be it, but there's been no specific distance that I know of, but I'm not sure.
And I think what they're proposing, what we did with the life jacket restriction, there's a tailwater ramp below all the dams. We put signs up right next to that ramp saying any boat above this area has to wear a PFD, and I think the signs would go in that same area. I'd like to add just one little thing that on the litigation end of it, when I was still at the manager at Cheatham, sometime in about seemed like the mid to late 90s, two gentlemen were in a boat below Hickory. One had a life jacket on, one didn't. The alarms went off, letting them know they were going to activate a generator. They chose to ignore the alarms. The boat capsized. One gentleman had a PFD on, one did not. The fellow that had the PFD on managed to get a hold of the fellow that did. They washed downriver. He lost his grip on him, and the fellow drowned. The family sued the court, went to federal court, and the federal judge said that, in his opinion, that the Corps had adequate warning devices with the signs requiring PFD wearing, had already implemented these safety measures I talked about, and dismissed the charges. Recently, there was an incident in Center Hill that Ed probably heard about, that there was a fellow up there in a little boat that he shouldn't have been in, a little almost trolling motor-sized boat. They came out and advised him they were going to spill some water to move out. He went down to the ramp. Unbeknownst to them, he paddled back up to the area, and they released water right into his boat. He drowned. His grandson did not. That's the one the Corps, I'm not sure what money was paid out, but that may have precipitated this latest action. One other proposal that we tried to make with the Colonel is the most dangerous time below these dams, and we had a drowning down at Cheatham in 2010, is when water is actually passing through the floodgates, spillway gates. Nobody should be down there then because you have that hydraulic effect. And that's when this fellow drowned. He had an inflatable PFD on, and for some reason it didn't inflate. But normally things, like I say, it's been 50 years of 1% drowning, so I just wanted to make that extra information available to you.
Yes, Chairman, I think the commission, if Director Carter thinks it would help, that we should pass a resolution and put it in a form of a letter and send it to whoever, Senator Corcoran, Senator Alexander, and whoever the Corps people are, and see if we can do something about this.
Director, if I may, when is your meeting in December?
The 4th.
So we need to do this pretty quick. And then the other question was, Mike, has the senator met with the general or the colonel yet?
As far as I know, he has not. He has requested that he come to Washington.
But you haven't heard whether they're meeting or
I
not?
haven't heard. I've been left out of the loop. He's put a gag over on everything. I heard that too really loud. So, in fact, it's in the letter that I've got a copy of the letter Alexander sent to the letter.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, if you come to the front, please, sir. State your name.
Thank you. I'll be brief. My name's Ronnie Smith. I'm also a former Corps of Engineer Resource Manager. I retired from Dale Hollow Lake 5 years ago. Just to make a comment about meetings with Congressman. Congressman Cooper met with Colonel DeLapp and objected strongly to this proposal and stated the reasons why, and he stood up on behalf of the sportsmen in the state who fish the Cumberland River. And Colonel DeLapp basically he's an immovable wall almost. He simply ignores the objections of state agencies, the objections of sportsmen, and even of our legislators. He's going to make this policy change so that he can come into compliance with the national policy. But it's a policy and it's not a law or a reg. He has met with Congressman Cooper. He is not going to listen to at the local level, and it's going to take his superiors at the Washington level to overrule and change his mind. And Senator Alexander is in support of our opposition. He has requested a personal meeting with the colonel. I don't know when that's going to occur, but our congressmen and legislators are on board with us. There's nobody that I know of who supports the colonel, not even his own agency, other than himself. And he says, I'm going to come into compliance with the national policy, and that's the way it is. So it's going to have to take action from the Washington level. And if the commission can support our congressmen and senators on this behalf, the sportsmen in Middle Tennessee would greatly, greatly appreciate that. But thank you for that opportunity.
Harold?
Chairman McMillan, I'd like to, in keeping with Commissioner Cox's direction, I'd like to propose that I'll make a motion that we support Director Carter as well as our congressmen and senators in their efforts to have the implementation of this policy stop, if that's an appropriate motion.
Well, is there any other discussion?
In the interest of time, because I think December the 4th, perhaps Director Carter could write a letter on behalf of the commission for our unanimous, if it's a unanimous vote, support for the efforts. And I believe it ought to be sent not only to political representatives, to media outlets, and to drum up some other public support. I concur with that.
The motion then is that that it was made and approved by the commission is to authorize Director Carter to write a letter addressing this issue on behalf of the commission, supporting opposition to this regulation that the colonel's wanting to pass. Is that correct? Let me ask you this. Do we need, Cheryl, you may be the one to, do we need to approve the letter that we do, that Director Carter writes?
No, you don't have to vote on it. You just want to give him the discretion subject to your approval.
Okay. It's my understanding that's what we're doing, right? The commission is giving Director Carter the authority and the discretion to write a letter addressing this matter.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Is any
The
other?
proposal is that we're opposed to it.
Yes, yes. Any other discussion? Mike, I've read that letter that Senator Alexander wrote, and I tell you, he has really been a friend to the sportsmen and women in this state. Not only on this issue, he's really stepped up on a lot of issues, and we owe him a debt of gratitude for sure.
I'd just like a copy of his letter. He said he had copies of the letter, Chairman. I'd just like a copy of it.
After we adjourn, or either in a break, they can probably get that copied, Mike, somebody can, back in the office. We had a discussion, that's right. All right, all in favor of the motion to have Director Carter write a letter on behalf of the commission opposing the regulation that's been proposed by Colonel, what's his name? DeLapp. Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you.
Do it, thank you.
All right, we'll move on. Now we're going to ask Mr. Jack Daniels from the Claiborne County Mayor to present his concerns.
Mr. Chairman and Commission, we appreciate y'all having us here today and putting us on your agenda. My concerns today is a boat landing that we have down, we call it Brogan Hollow, and it's on Norris Lake. And we've got a beautiful lake, and I gave you some literature there on it that I laid on your desk. But we're looking to enlarge it and try our best to get it where we can have bass tournaments and stuff like that, because if you'll see the resolution there that's on the front, our court has already passed a resolution that we're very concerned, because we've got a lot of fishermen. I've got Barry Thomas, one of our commissioners, and Bill Keck, and we've got two of our fishermen and hunters, Brother Paul Napiers and Clifford Bunch. And believe me, that's what they are. They have talked it ever since I've gotten a truck with them. But we have got the sponsorship and everything for a bass tournament that is going to be coming, that we're hoping that we can have in April. This boat landing is just too small to accommodate all the fishermen and stuff that wants to come to Norris Lake. And if we can get a proposal today, I talked to TVA yesterday, and if you'll notice right there, I don't know if I made the lines as showing But he was, Mr. Chairman, let me give you this one right here. He was showing me right here, on this right here, that this, he said that he told me that we had areas on both sides and that to work with. And I told him that I was coming down today to meet with the commissioners, and like I say, we need this in a bad way, and we're willing, the court's already confronted it and are willing to go, and the sponsorships are all already there. And so I would greatly appreciate, because of the economy and everything the way it is, we can get a great revenue to come in. That helps you, me, the county, and as the mayor of Claiborne County, I want to do everything I can to try to help. Does anybody have any questions?
I think what we need to do is perhaps get John Gregory to get us abreast of the situation. Have you been following it, and let us know? I know there's some difficulties concerning maybe some Indian artifacts or something.
Well, I have had discussions with TVA on this. The rescue squad contacted us some months ago about requesting to expand this ramp. In discussion with TVA, there are artifacts on the shoreline in the area, but they're not sure how far in elevation away from the old channels and rivers that they go. So they're willing for me to enter into an application that we do for any improvements on TVA. We only have a license on this piece of property. Actually, it's a license in conjunction with Claiborne County. Right. And they predict or feel pretty strongly that they would require what they call a phase 1 archaeological study. That study runs $2,000 to $5,000. They say the permit process is about 90 days. I'm not sure if that includes the time it takes to do that study. But that just gets us to a point where we know if we have artifacts on the site. And then they would tell us if we have to go way further on either removing those artifacts or how we could proceed, or the cost, or estimate the cost of what it would cost to proceed. So I think right now we could enter into applying, putting the application in, and get through that phase 1 and see where we're at. As far as tournaments and Dwight, has a schedule that's budgeted when this could be worked in. That's not my call, I guess, but there are a bunch of items that people have been waiting for some time to be done on our access. We have demands all across the state. So, but yeah, in the funding, I've talked to the mayor this morning. I got to meet him finally. They have committed in our discussions that they would be willing to split the cost of that phase 1 work that could run anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, maybe a little more. But
when did you say the phase 1? When was that? Do you have?
When I put in the application to TVA, what they explained to me, they'll go look around, but because of the known artifacts in the area, I think they're going to recommend to do a phase 1. I don't know, I could go ahead and tell them let's just plan on it, and so there's no delay. Let's just go ahead and plan on doing that phase 1 when I talk to them or submit my application. But I can get the application probably worked out maybe next week. So
appreciate that.
If that's the desire. So.
Well, if you put in an application for phase 1 and they request some extensive dig to determine the extent of it, what's the expense of that?
Well, the phase 1 will determine that. They'll report back to us the findings, tell us if it's going to that next level, and then we would have the chance to say, hey, we can't afford to go further, or maybe it won't be as expensive and we could go further. But they'll stop at that point, report back to us.
Mayor Daniels, and I don't know exactly what it would be, but after you and I talked about you coming down, and I got
Yes.
to looking into this a little more and talked with John and Director Carter, and actually, as I understand it, if after the phase one, if they determine there are artifacts and there needs to be a phase two study and so forth, you're looking at $100,000 or more to get into that.
Right.
And
Well, to get the first phase, we don't have no problem with that, and get the report back on what,
yeah, I know that,
Okay.
and I'm not saying that you got to put up the $100,000. I don't know where, or
Right.
whatever the figure would be, but obviously, what I think we want you all to understand, you and the commission and the people there, it's a step process.
True.
We got to start with phase one.
Right.
And until that's done, we don't know where we're going or what the cost may be.
okay.
And
Well,
from
that's
what
why
John
I'm here
ha-
today.
Yeah, and from what John has said, that probably, even from the time you apply, typically it's 90 days before they even get into or get the phase one aspect of the study performed. Is that right? Or before they even start it?
I think at some point during that 90 days, probably two things will be going on at the same time.
Okay.
But with that phase one, I expect the process would take more than 90 days to do the test digs that they do.
Yeah. Well, the reason I made those comments is we're willing to go forward with that. We don't want a misunderstanding that
Right,
we're
right. I
guaranteeing.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That can happen.
Okay, when this phase one comes back in, Mr. Chairman, and it says, let's just say, for instance, it says it's gonna take $75,000. If we can work together and everything, I know the county would work together with TWRA and TVA and all that, and that's what we have been doing, I guess, 3 months, 6 months? And, but now, we would greatly appreciate it, and I appreciate y'all letting us come down and be with you, and if we can get this in process, we'll take it forward, when they, whatever they tell us, that's what we'll present.
Right, we're all kind of stuck with that. The biggest thing I want to be sure everybody understands, there's a timetable involved.
Yes,
That none
yeah.
of us can control that.
Right, so we're
Okay.
getting that timetable started today.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If we
okay,
can, yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chairman Brown,
Yeah.
and also to add, the expenses that we're talking about have nothing to do with the actual cost of the construction if it ever did get to that point of a green light for the ramp, correct? These are all just based on survey costs, not construction costs, is that correct? So there's just basically yes, there's dirt being moved, but it's not actually dirt being moved as far as a construction of a ramp.
That's correct.
It's with a little bitty shovel.
And, go ahead.
There's an old road right there that used to be the main highway, the best I can recall. It's going back way past my time. And like I say there, that draft that I gave Mr. Chairman there, the one that I gave him, I talked to, it was Bert Robinson. Does anybody know him?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad somebody does. I was starting to get worried. But I talked to him yesterday, and he told me, he said, Jack, just take and go down and have your meeting, get everything in order and all that good stuff. And that's what we're doing here today. And he was telling me that on each side there, we did have some areas there to work with. But he said, you be sure to get back with me. And I said, I will. So we just here today to get this progress started and do the best we can for the county.
Right.
And we got a lot of fishermen and hunters, and them two guys right there can definitely tell you all the stories you want to hear. But we thank you. Any other question?
I got one. If we do get to the construction phase, I mean, what are you proposing? Like doubling the size of the ramp or parking lot, or
Yes,
what's the proposal?
We want as much as we can get.
It's more or less be a gravel parking lot suitable with us.
Okay.
Just remove the trees, gravel. But it was old campsite at one time, it blocked off. The roads blocked off one end of it for from this ramp. They used to be trailers stuck in there, real campers, and they blocked it off, so. All we're trying to do is just move and put gravel down.
Mainly a parking lot issue instead of a boat
It's not a
ramp.
ramp.
Oh, yeah, it's a parking issue.
We just need to park. They're parking on, they're parking on side roads and everything else right now.
We just need
Parking is a boat ramp.
We got good ground.
So you're not wanting to expand the width of the boat ramp?
Yeah, that's what I.
No,
no.
we're the parking.
Oh,
the
we
parking.
were understanding that it was the boat ramp.
No, it's the parking.
Oh, no, did y'all understand that?
Yes, sir.
That it was just parking?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yeah,
Mr.
okay.
Chairman,
So is,
Mayor Daniels, just real quick. In my other life, I deal with these TVA permits throughout the year over and over again.
Okay.
And I think my personal summary of what we're wanting you to hear is this agency is going to do everything it can to facilitate the schedule. That's why John's doing what he's doing. John has seen more of these permits, frankly, and dealt with them in a year than I probably have in a lifetime. So you're in great hands with John Gregory.
Okay, thank you.
But please know that we, and I'm sure you all do, being on Norris, it isn't us that drives the schedule, but we're going to do our best. And if it gets into a phase 2, probably we'll be looking at another area to create a parking lot. But let's just take it a step at a time. And,
Okay,
and
I'm
John
fine with
can-
that.
John's the master at navigating these waters.
okay, all right. Any other questions?
Director Carter, for my own information, does TVA have people in-house that go out and do this kind of archaeological survey? Or do they sub that out or have a firm that conducts that survey for them?
To my knowledge, and I'll ask John, they have both. They have people in-house that do some of that when it gets to a certain level, then I'm pretty sure they contract out the other side of that.
Commissioner, real quick, you can have TVA do it. What they will do is set up an account that you have to pay into, and basically you're paying them as a consultant, and you're on their timeline. And it's usually best from a financial standpoint and a schedule standpoint, if we had the opportunity to take care of it, that it be taken care of privately. So,
Well, it sounds like a lot of red tape and bureaucrats.
I'm not gonna go there. Just share with you.
Well, we're willing to do, Mr. Chairman, whatever the pleasure of the commission and this man here and the TVA, we're willing to do that, and I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you for coming back. And thank you for that clarification. I think maybe everybody but Director Carter was under the impression we also was gonna widen the boat ramp, but that's not an issue. Okay.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Thank you for coming. Director Carter?
Just to finish up on the discussion, sometimes I feel like a wet blanket here, and don't mean to be, because of Region 4 people, when this first came up, they said, this is something we really want to do. We think it's a good idea for all the reasons they just said. And you know what a great fishery Norris is, and they're exactly right. Anything we can do that it increases fishing and opportunity there is good for everybody, it's for the community and the agency. We set our budgets, though, about, as you well know, over a year ahead of time. And with that, we identify what we're going to do on our access areas and boat ramps all across the state. That's been identified for about a year. So if we go forward on this project, all I want you to know is that at some point, when we find out, hey, we can do it, then we'll have to come back to you with a decision saying, here's the ones that we're going to push down the list, that some we've made commitments on that we can't move, but some where this is something in-house that we decided, here's our list. Just a long story short, we'll have to come back and say, if we do this one, this is what to give down here, or the other option is a budget expansion in contracts. So just wanted to make sure that you understood that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to ask Assistant Chief Frank Fisk to come up and discuss the tailwater management update on the meetings we had in Upper East Tennessee this week. Thank you.
No. Oh, okay.